So I then was called up by Amazon. Didn't really think I had anything to do with e-commerce or online shopping, but I went to the USA to be interviewed. I met Jeff Bezos. Before I got to meet him, I had one day in Seattle where I think I met 12 people. So I met his entire team for 30, 45 minutes individually, one-to-one. By the time I met Jeff, it was 6 o'clock at night. I was punch drunk. I was exhausted. I didn't know whether it was coming or going. And then I had 45 minutes with, who was at the time one of the most dramatic and revolutionary business people on the planet. But we got on very well. I remember from the interview, he looked at my CV or a resume, as he'd call it, and he threw it dismissively onto the desk and he said, look, he says, I don't need to go through this. He says, like, you wouldn't be here unless that was good anyway. So I'm going to take that as read. And he was much more into what sort of person I was, what motivated me. I remember that he threw me a real curveball question where he said, just tell me, Brian, he said, how many windows are there in London? And I'm thinking, my goodness. And I was trying to think. And he said, take your time. He said, just think about it. And then I thought through and I tried in my mind to define London as being the physical city of London, and I thought about how many people lived there and how many people worked there. And I think I just took a swag at it. I came up with a number of 38 million. And then I said, I think it's 38 million. He said, okay. He said, and how did you get to that answer? So I had to then working back through my homework. And he said, okay. And then he moved on. And at the end of it, he said, well, I think that was pretty good. He says, we'll be in touch. And I said, oh, by the way, I said, what was the answer to the question? How many windows are there? And he said, oh, I haven't a clue. He said, I just wanted to see what your thought process was. And that was the sort of person he was. Yeah. Anyway, my thought process couldn't have been too bad because I got offered the job and then I became the chief executive of Amazon in the UK on the 1st of January 2006. And I spent almost 6 years there.
And it proved to be obviously a very exciting time, presumably. That was the transition period. Was Amazon going through enormous changes at that stage?
Yeah, I think when I look back, I just caught some amazing technology waves. It wasn't by planning or foresight. It was by serendipity and luck. I always think of the great Roman Stoic philosopher, Seneca. Seneca was around when he was an advisor to Nero, and he was around when we went from BC to AD, so 2,200 years ago. And he said, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. So I was very lucky, but I was ready for it when it came along as well. So landed at Amazon. It was a bit of a shambles. It was a great company, but the UK was all over the place. It had a very inexperienced junior team. It wasn't really set up properly. Attrition was very high, and it was succeeding despite itself, not because of it. And my mission was really not to invent any technology or to design a better website. It was to build a management team and a structure that would take this thing from, what was at the time probably about $1.5 billion up to 5 billion of sales, which it was when I left. So it was it was a little bit of a roller coaster. It was like being on a bucking bronco. There was always something new, something happening. But an incredibly exciting time. Amazon was breaking the mold with what they were doing and going from books and CDs and DVDs all the way through to big electronics and then, jewelry and clothing and everything. So every 6 months we were launching some new category. So great. And then bringing on, the Amazon marketplace, getting into Prime, getting into the Amazon cloud, which was a complete accident. They didn't intend to invent it. It just came about as a byproduct of the capacity that they already had. So these were great times.
Yeah, Amazon Web Services you're talking about there.
Yeah,
because that's sort of almost bigger than the rest of Amazon, I think, wasn't it?
Well, it's almost inverted. That's become the main business, and the way that Amazon Web Services came about was like every retail company has to build up massive capacity to deal with the Christmas spike, and the Christmas spike lasts from probably the 2nd of December to about the 17th or 18th. That's when you need peak processing power for taking your orders, getting the orders picked and packed and delivered. And so you gear up for this massive spike in retail. And then for the next 50 weeks of the year, you've got capacity coming out your ears that you don't need. And some bright spark in Amazon in Seattle says, well, why don't we kind of rent out some of this processing power, rent out some of this massive storage space we've got, and see if we can make a business out of it. And Amazon was great for letting people just experiment and try stuff. You know, if you experimented and it didn't work out, you know, you never got criticized for that. Well, suddenly there was this massive demand. It took them by surprise. It ended up, people were paying for it with their credit cards. There wasn't a billing system or anything. And it suddenly took off, and they basically invented the whole cloud computing services industry.
And do you think there's a case for breaking these such businesses up because they're becoming too monopolistic?
I don't think so. I think competition is a great factor, and I think there's plenty of competition. You know, if you want to buy a TV or a washing machine, there's a lot of people beyond Amazon who offer you that. It's the same with probably books, and certainly digital books, that they've got a pretty good market share. But I don't think, I think the businesses are different. The fact they've got a cloud business, and the fact that they've got, you know, a marketplace business. I mean, in my time, these weren't cross-subsidizing each other. They have to stand on their own 2 feet. So I'm not sure what breaking them up would actually achieve. It wouldn't make it more competitive. I do believe that competition is the greatest force that you've got in business. And even on the Amazon marketplace, you know, the number of different sellers who are offering you that mobile phone case, for instance, that's what keeps the price down.
Yeah.
And consumers want prices to stay down. I mean, that's the whole point. These businesses that have driven prices down, that's what the consumers want.